allow me to indulge the panelists for a short while. They're here because the organizations they represent have done some work in the area of digital delivery of education. And let me just invite each of them to take 2 minutes to share with us the highlights of what they have done in this area. Emily, if you could go first from the British Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From British Council, there's a project we have together with Microsoft. It's called Badiliko. Badiliko was developed so that we could change the mindset of the teachers from the shift. Actually, Badiliko means shift. From the way they were teaching to modern or digital way of implementing or integrating teaching. So Badiliko is based on 3 strands. One, which was increased access of the digital hubs. Both organizations invested $1 million. So that was $2 million to go into 6 countries. So it's not just in Kenya, but it's also happening in Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Ghana. We have learned very good practices, and it's good for the government to take recognizance of what are other countries doing, what has worked, and what are the gaps. Again, the second strand is policy dialogue. We don't work in isolation. Remember, this is a partnership between British Council and Microsoft. We have brought the ministry on board, and everything we do, we work closely with them. And therefore, last year we had a workshop in Naivasha, which I've seen some faces here. They attended, and we're looking at what are the best ways to include or bring digital inclusion, and also the integration. So it's not just about the teacher having the device, the tool, but the skill to integrate ICT so that ICT is seen as an enabler. And then the third strand is professional development. Professional development is very key. In the morning, there's a lady who mentioned that it doesn't matter about the infrastructure, what is the need. So we can deploy the devices to the counties, to the schools, but what is the e-readiness of the teachers? I'm glad to hear also the ministry recognizing the efforts of other players. So far, about 50,000 teachers having been trained. But then when you're out in the field, when monitoring is being done, the big question is, how confident are they? Do they have access to the devices? Is there any assessment that has been done in terms of impact or overall to see a student who has been taught using integrated ways and a student where the teacher has no use of skills of ICT, how do they perform? And I wish that the Kenya National Examination Council was here to also provide some answers, but I think it's something we can talk about later. So those are the 3 strands we're looking at, and currently we're working closely with Teacher Service Commission. You've heard that it is their mandate to ensure that the teachers have the skills. So it's not just the skills of ICT, but how do they integrate ICT into the lessons so that the students receive quality education. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And I am sure one of the questions that would come from the audience will be about the preparedness by the time the laptops are delivered to the schools, preparedness of the teachers. We have about 300,000, about 200,000 primary school teachers. Will we be ready by 2014 when these laptops are expected to be delivered?
It's a huge task, because if you're talking of 300,000, but remember the government has made a pledge to all the Standard 1 teachers. So if you're taking a normal classroom in Kenyan situation, that would be 2 streams. So there's a need to train either 2 teachers or 4 teachers. So we are talking of about 52,000 close by or more. And this is just for the start. And remember, we're just talking of about 50,000 across the board. And what I know is that most of them are in the secondary schools, not primary. Little has been done within the primary section. But within Badiliko and other programs like ACE, where Microsoft has partnered with Intel, USAID, FHI 360, and now there's another one we're rolling out in June together with Intel, World Vision, and Microsoft. We are focusing so much with the primary schools. So the prospects of training 300,000 teachers, I'm sure will take the big chunk of the budget from the ministry, if you are to look at it that way, because it's about upskilling. I want to believe that the teachers are not really illiterate. They're not really totally ignorant, but how do they deliver in a classroom situation so that there is, at the end of the day, we see a child that can be employed anywhere. They get the right skills of employability across the globe.
May I invite Victor, representing ICT board. These are custodians of all matters ICT. What has the ICT board done in this area?
Okay, thank you, Principal Kaemba. I think I'll share two experiences we've gone through and we've worked through. The first one is a research and education network for the academic sector, mainly the tertiary level, which comprises public and private universities. It started some years back, which now has come of age. But what is important about the Kenya Education Network is the premise on which it's built. And it's built on the premise of you must consume knowledge to be able to contribute or to become a producer of knowledge. And the two key tenets of doing that from the inception was networking and building a community of users. Though on the onset it looked like an infrastructure project, it actually embodied a lot of parameters which are required to and can be borrowed with what you're trying to do today. Because connectivity was expensive, everybody wanted to do what they want to do in their own way, and nobody had sufficient knowledge of what they needed to do. And leveraging on an initiative by the USA through a leader initiative in 17 countries across Africa, Kenya adopted a very different approach. And that was made possible by the public and private universities in Kenya coming together to build a network. The success of KENET has been based on the community approach by the universities, where it's the universities themselves who identified their needs, came up actually with a tool to assess their e-readiness, and that introduced competition besides the collaboration which they had, and that has driven the network. Whereby today, out of around 64 institutions, cost of connectivity is no longer really a major issue. Now they are looking at service levels of ensuring the quality of that connectivity. On top of that, we're beginning to see some collaboration and work in creating or producing knowledge, because students within the different institutions are able to access knowledge much more easily and share it better. The second one, which I'll rush to very fast, is an initiative we started at the board of empowering students at university level to access laptops or learning devices as we looked at it. And initially, we thought this is going to be a very big challenge. And actually, I was a bit skeptical when we started the project. And we concentrated more on looking at what measures do we put to avoid fraud in this project. But with time, we realized even if a student buys a laptop and sells it, it's still within the Kenyan community. And if he takes it home, it's within a household. So access in a household is improved. And we were able to push out 15,000 laptops by subsidizing them at the tune of $100 per laptop. Now, we followed up this through the education network to find out what was the effect, what was the outcome of this. And to our surprise, universities were forced to start putting hotspots in hostels of residence, number one. Number two, it became apparent that traffic on EBSCO, this is the collection of journals, international journals, which most institutions will use for research. Way back in 2003, 2004, EBSCO decided to make the journals, which were really expensive to the universities, free to our universities online. Traffic on that portal was very low from the particular IPs which you've had or addresses which had been provisioned for our universities. But by just getting 15,000 laptops into the student community, traffic shot up. Now, what we've not yet found out, which needs to be investigated, is whether the quality of the thesis and the research papers people producing has also improved. But the outcome of all this is to show that actually give some inquisitive minds the devices to learn and devices to toy around with. And let's not worry too much about having everybody completely ready. Some of the universities, and I say this based and backed by data, which started off very badly, are today showing signs of the biggest improvement when they started being ranked indirectly through a tool which now Kenneth is trying to share with the rest of the East African institutions. So I believe that come 2014, and we wake up one day, and from where I come from in the rural area, if I happen to be there and I see like 4,000, 5,000 students, whether the learning devices are theirs to keep or they borrowed from a library, and whether they have shoes or not, and they're carrying these devices, which is I think it will be a sight to behold, just for them to mix books and learning devices. Thank you.